Chapter 1. The Stranger in the Rain. The rain started just after dusk, soft at first, then steady, like the sky had made up its mind to grieve in earnest. Nathan stood under the awning of a shuttered diner, watching the world through the blurred lens of falling water. He had no umbrella, no wallet, no memory, just the name he'd been told at the hospital and the ache in his ribs that never quite let him forget the accident. Nathan Hale, the nurse had said. That's what we're calling you, at least. Your fingerprints didn't bring up much. Do you remember anything? He hadn't. Not his name, not his past, just vague sensations that came and went like dreams at the edge of waking. A scent here, a sound there, a feeling that someone somewhere was waiting for him, but didn't know it. The only thing he knew for sure was this. He hadn't belonged in that hospital bed, and he sure as hell didn't belong in this town. But for reasons he couldn't explain, he hadn't left. Maybe he was waiting for something. Or someone. Lightning forked across the sky, and Nathan flinched at the flash. A second later, thunder cracked like a whip. The street was nearly empty, save for a few brave souls ducking into coffee shops and cabs. That's when he saw it, a little flower shop at the corner of the block, lights still glowing warm behind fogged-up windows. Monroe Blooms. The bell above the door jingled when he pushed it open. The scent hit him instantly. Lavender, eucalyptus, a hint of something citrusy. Homey, gentle. And then he saw her. The woman behind the counter looked up from the bouquet she was wrapping, her fingers stilling around the twine. She was beautiful, not in the glossy magazine cover way, but in the real way that lingered. Her dark hair was pinned up messily like she hadn't meant for it to be, and her eyes were the kind that could hold you in place without trying. But what struck him most wasn't her face, it was her expression. For a split second, her entire body froze. Then her eyes widened, her lips parted, like she'd just seen a ghost. Nathan blinked. Sorry, are you closing? She shook herself, quickly dropping her gaze to the flowers. No, you're fine. Come in, just trying to finish this order. Her voice, soft, steady, but too calm. He watched her hands tremble slightly as she tied the bouquet. I didn't mean to interrupt, he said. You didn't. She looked up again, and this time her face was all politeness. Nothing more. It's just the weather. Not great for walk-ins. Nathan glanced around. The shop was cozy, the kind of place designed to feel like a secret. The shelves were lined with old books, dried herbs, and mismatched vases. In the corner, a record player hummed something slow and jazzy. It's nice in here, he said, almost to himself. Peaceful. Thanks. She gave him a half smile, but her eyes hadn't stopped scanning him. Are you visiting town? He hesitated. I'm not sure. She blinked. You're not sure? I had an accident a few weeks ago. Lost some memories. Well, all of them, actually. Her breath caught so subtly he wouldn't have noticed if he hadn't been watching her. Oh, she said, voice quiet now. I'm sorry. Nathan shrugged, trying to make light of it. It's strange, waking up and realizing you don't even know your own name, or where you live, or who you were. She nodded slowly. That must be incredibly hard. It is. But I've been managing. The hospital gave me a place to stay for a while. Then some community center helped me find a room above a bakery. The lady there's sweet, keeps trying to get me to join a knitting club. The woman let out a small laugh and something shifted in her face. Less guarded, still cautious, but warmer. I'm Clara, she said. Clara Monroe. Her name settled in the air like mist. Nathan held out a hand. Nice to meet you, Clara. She hesitated just for a beat before taking it. Her fingers were cool, soft. He held on a second longer than necessary, and when their eyes met again, he felt something. A flicker. Familiarity? Déjà vu? No, not quite. It was deeper than that. Like something in him recognized her. Like a chord had been struck and was still humming in his bones. Clara pulled her hand back gently. Would you like some tea? I keep a kettle in the back. That'd be great. Thanks. She disappeared through a curtain, and Nathan wandered to a shelf of succulents, letting his eyes scan the handwritten labels. For strength, for letting go, for new beginnings. He paused in front of the last one. Clara returned a minute later with 2 mismatched mugs. She handed him one, chamomile and honey. Do you remember anything? She asked, quietly. He shook his head. Only bits. Feelings, smells. Sometimes I'll see someone and think I know them, but it's never real. She nodded, staring into her tea. Do you ever get the feeling that something terrible happened before the accident? That there's a reason your mind won't let you remember? Nathan looked at her sharply. Yeah, exactly. How'd you know? Clara smiled sadly. Just a guess. He studied her for a moment. Do I seem familiar to you? She went still again. Too still. No, she said far too quickly. Not at all. Nathan didn't press, but something deep in his chest stirred. A whisper of a thought. She's lying. But why? And what exactly did she see when he walked in that made her face fall like that? He didn't know, but he would find out. Chapter 2, The Name She Never Says. Clara barely slept that night. She sat on the edge of her bed, knees drawn up, mug of untouched tea going cold on the nightstand. The apartment above her flower shop had once been her sanctuary. Quiet, warm, filled with soft music and the smell of lavender. But now it felt like the walls were closing in. Nathan Hale. That's what he was calling himself. That's what the hospital called him. But that wasn't his name. It never had been. Clara pressed her forehead to her knees and inhaled deeply, as if scent alone could pull her back into the present. But all she could see was his face, standing in the doorway, soaked from the rain, the same way he'd once arrived in her life years ago. Back then, he'd been different, confident, smiling, full of charm and reckless hope. Back then, he'd loved her, and she'd loved him too, but he didn't remember any of it now. And Clara couldn't decide if that made it better or worse. The next morning, Nathan woke to the sound of birds and the distant hum of bakery ovens downstairs. His little rented room smelled like cinnamon rolls and coffee, but his head was full of Clara. He'd dreamt of her. Only, in the dream, she hadn't been the Clara he met last night. She was crying. Her hands were covered in something dark, maybe soil, maybe blood, and someone was shouting her name. He sat up, sweating, breath shallow. None of it made sense. He got dressed quickly and left the room with one thought pulling at him like a thread. She knows something. Clara tried to focus on her work. She kept her hands moving, arranging stems, trimming thorns, tying ribbons, because the moment she paused, her thoughts circled back to him, to his eyes, the way they searched her face like he was looking for answers, like he could almost see the truth. She wasn't ready for that. The truth would ruin everything. Clara, a voice called from the doorway. She turned, expecting a delivery or one of the regulars. It was him. Nathan stood there, dry this time, hair tousled, hands shoved awkwardly into his coat pockets. Hey, he said. Sorry to show up again unannounced. Her heart stuttered. It's okay. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about last night. Oh? There's something about you. I know that sounds weird, but he ran a hand through his hair. I felt alone since I woke up, even around people, but when I walked into your shop, he trailed off, eyes searching hers. It was like I'd finally stepped into something real. Clara looked down at her work table. She couldn't meet his eyes. That's a nice thing to say. I meant it. She tightened a ribbon with trembling fingers. Do you ever get flashes of memories? She asked. Like images, sounds? Sometimes. They don't mean much, but I had a dream last night. You were in it. Clara's hands froze. You were crying, he said quietly. You looked devastated. I wanted to reach out to help you, but I couldn't move, and someone was calling your name, shouting it. Her voice was paper thin. Who? I don't know. I couldn't see them, but I felt this panic, like something had gone terribly wrong. Clara turned away. Dreams are tricky like that. He watched her, frustration flickering across his face. You know, I thought I could handle not knowing who I was. But every day I feel like I'm walking through someone else's life, like I've been dropped into a story that already started without me. Clara didn't respond. He stepped closer. Tell me something. Anything. Even if you think it's nothing. Did you know me before? She lifted her chin slowly, her face unreadable. No. A lie. A perfect, poised lie. Nathan felt it in his gut, but he didn't push. Not yet. Instead, he nodded. Okay, sorry, I won't bother you again. He turned and walked out before she could say anything more, but her silence was louder than a scream. That night, Clara went to the drawer she hadn't opened in almost a year. It was in the bedroom, bottom right, beneath old sweaters and dried-up pens. The key was still taped to the back of her dresser. She unlocked the drawer and pulled out the box. Inside were photos, letters, hospital bracelets, a cracked cell phone, and one wedding invitation with his name on it. Julian Barrett, not Nathan Hale. Her Julian. Or at least, he used to be. Before the fire, before the fight, before the betrayal. She traced the photo on top of the stack. It was from a vacation upstate, him carrying her on his back across a frozen lake, both of them laughing. Her face open, his eyes wild and beautiful and full of life. She tucked the picture back in the box like it burned her. This couldn't be happening. He wasn't supposed to come back. Not after everything. He was supposed to be gone. Just gone. She shut the drawer and leaned back against it, breathing hard. Meanwhile, Nathan wandered into the community library, a dusty old building with creaky floors and volunteers who smiled too wide. He liked it there. It was quiet. He pulled books off the shelf at random, trying to find something, anything that clicked. Then, from the far side of the aisle, he heard a voice. "That's not your name, is it?" He turned. A woman in her 70s stood there, thin scarf around her neck, sharp eyes narrowed on his face. "Nathan, sorry?" "You were on the news," she said softly. "Last year, the fiancé of that florist, the one with the accident." Nathan blinked. "What florist?" But she was already shaking her head. "Sorry, maybe I'm wrong. Forget I said anything." She walked away before he could stop her. But the words echoed in his mind. The fiancé of that florist. Clara. His heart began to pound. Chapter 3. Ghosts of a Forgotten Man. Nathan sat on the park bench across from Clara's shop, pretending to read the newspaper he found in the cafe. The wind tugged at the corners of the pages, but he barely noticed. His eyes kept drifting to the window of Wildflower and Thorn, where Clara was helping an elderly man pick out daisies. She was laughing, head tilted back, her hands gesturing delicately as she spoke. Her smile lit up the whole room. It was the same smile from the photo he'd found, because after the library, he hadn't gone home. He'd gone back to the hospital, the rehab wing where he first woke up weeks ago. When no one was looking, he snuck into the staff room and rifled through the drawer marked "Personal Belongings Unclaimed." The cracked cell phone inside looked familiar. The lock screen was dark, the passcode wiped, but tucked inside the case was a folded photograph. Him and Clara. In her arms. At her shop. Laughing. The exact same woman. And yet she'd lied to his face. Nathan closed the newspaper and stood. He didn't know what he was going to say, but he couldn't stay silent anymore. Clara was rinsing flower buckets in the back when she heard the bell over the door chime. She already knew it was him. She didn't even have to look up. Nathan stepped inside slowly, holding something in his hand. She froze when she saw the photo. "Where did you get that?" she asked, her voice sharper than intended. "I found it in a phone, one I think used to be mine." Silence filled the air like smoke. "You lied to me," he said quietly. Clara set the bucket down, water sloshed onto the floor. "Nathan, that's not my name, is it?" She said nothing. "Who was I?" he asked. "Who am I to you?" Her throat tightened. "You don't want to know." "Yes, I do." "No, you think you do," she whispered, eyes glistening. "But if I tell you, you'll hate me." He blinked. "Why would I hate you?" Clara looked away, wiping her hands on her apron. "Because the man you were, the man in that photo, he's gone, and bringing him back would only hurt us both." Nathan's fingers curled around the edge of the photo. "Was I a bad person?" That caught her off guard. "What, did I hurt you?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. You keep looking at me like you want to scream or cry or run, like you're afraid of something you can't say out loud. So tell me, what did I do?" Clara's voice dropped to a trembling hush. "You didn't do anything." "Then what happened?" She turned to face him, tears shining in her eyes. "You died." The words hit like a slap. Nathan stared at her. "What?" "I watched them drag your body from that burning wreck," she said, voice cracking. "They told me you were gone, that there was nothing left to save. I buried an empty coffin." He felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. "And now you're standing here," she whispered, "asking questions I don't have the strength to answer." Nathan didn't remember leaving the shop. He wandered for blocks, dazed and cold despite the spring sun. "I died." The words clung to his skin like frost. But the facts didn't add up. No one from the hospital had mentioned a death certificate. And if he'd been buried, why hadn't they told him? Why hadn't she? A deep part of him didn't want to believe Clara would lie without a reason. But a deeper part, the wounded, hollow part, was beginning to suspect there was something else, something she hadn't said yet. Later that night, Clara walked to the pier at the edge of town, the place where she used to go with him to watch the boats drift in. She stood at the railing, the wind tugging at her coat, the ocean dark and endless beneath her. She remembered the way Julian used to laugh, full and loud, unguarded, how he'd once promised her they'd grow old by the sea. She'd believed him until she found the text messages, until she walked in on the call with her name on his lips, alongside another woman's, until the fire, until everything came crashing down. He was her fiancé. He was her betrayer. And now he was a stranger again. A stranger she was still in love with. A stranger who might remember everything at any moment. Her eyes stung. "I'm sorry," she whispered into the wind. "I'm sorry for not saving you. I'm sorry for falling for you again." Miles away, Nathan stood in a payphone booth outside a gas station, heart pounding. The number had been scribbled on the back of the photograph, a name he didn't recognize. He dialed it anyway. One ring. Two. Click. A voice, cold and sharp. "I told you never to call this number again." Nathan gripped the receiver. "I'm sorry, but who is this?" "My name is Nathan Hale. I think I used to be someone else." Silence. Then a slow, stunned exhale. "Oh my God," the voice said. "You're alive? Do you know me, Julian?" The voice whispered. "Is that you?" His blood ran cold, and then the line went dead. Chapter 4: The Letter in the Drawer. The phone call haunted Nathan for days. That voice, the way it gasped his old name, Julian, as if it were a ghost returning from the grave. He tried calling back. The number was disconnected. He tried reverse searching it at the library, no results, and he tried to let it go. But something inside him wouldn't stop scratching at the walls of his mind. Something whispering, "You're not who you think you are." Clara was avoiding him. She hadn't returned his messages. He stopped by the shop twice. Both times she was out, according to her teenage assistant, who didn't meet his eyes. So Nathan walked, aimlessly at first, but his feet took him where they always seem to these days, back to the edge of town, to the neighborhood that felt eerily familiar, and eventually to the little blue house with chipped shutters and an overgrown fence. He stood at the gate for a long time before stepping in. The front door creaked open with barely a push. Whoever used to live here hadn't come back. Dust coated the floorboards. The fridge was unplugged. Cobwebs danced across the light fixtures like ghosts waiting to be remembered. Nathan's steps echoed as he wandered down the narrow hallway, past the empty living room, into a bedroom that pulled at something deep in his chest. The walls were pale gray. A window looked out over the backyard. A bookshelf stood crooked in the corner, still holding a few scattered novels and an old alarm clock. And then, in the far corner of the room, was a small wooden desk. Something told him to go to it. The drawer was stuck. He tugged harder. It opened with a groan. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed slightly with age. His name, Julian, was written in looping, desperate script. The handwriting looked familiar. Too familiar. Hands trembling as he opened it. If you're reading this, it means you came back, or maybe you never left. Maybe you never died at all. I don't know how to explain what I did. There's no way to soften it. I broke your trust. I destroyed us. You asked me once if I could ever forgive a betrayal. I told you yes, because love meant choosing someone even when they were broken. But I was wrong. Because I couldn't forgive you. You said it wasn't what it looked like, that she meant nothing. But when I heard you whispering her name, when I found the messages, I knew I'd lost you, and I couldn't stay. So I ran. I thought the fire would be the end. But now, even in your absence, you're still everywhere. I loved you, Julian. Maybe I still do. But love doesn't survive lies. Clara, Nathan's breath caught in his throat. Clara, she knew. She'd known everything. She hadn't just hidden the truth. She'd walked away from it, from him. Because he'd cheated, because he'd betrayed her. But that didn't make sense. That didn't feel right. His chest tightened as the memories fluttered, faint flashes like broken glass under a spotlight. A woman laughing, but not Clara. A bar. A fight. A voice yelling his name. Smoke. Fire. His hands started to shake. That night, Nathan sat on a bench outside the house, the letter clutched in his hands. He didn't notice the figure approaching until she was nearly beside him. Julian. He turned. Clara stood there, her face pale, lips trembling. "How did you know I'd be here?" he asked. She hesitated. "Because this was your home. I thought if you were remembering anything, you'd come back." His eyes searched hers. You wrote me a letter. Clara closed her eyes. I was going to throw it out. I thought I did. I read it. Her voice broke. I'm sorry. For which part? She looked down. All of it. He stood. You said I cheated on you, that I betrayed you. Is that true? She looked up at him, then, eyes brimming, no longer running. I don't know anymore, she whispered. I was so sure back then. I had the messages, the calls, but you never admitted it. And after the crash, there was no one left to explain. Just silence. His heart beat harder. But you still let me into your life. Even after all that? I didn't recognize you at first, she admitted. You looked different, spoke different. You were gentle, like a man trying to figure out how to breathe again. She stepped closer, and for a moment I let myself believe maybe this was a second chance, that maybe the you who came back was someone new. He didn't speak. I was terrified of telling you the truth, Clara continued, because I knew if you remembered, we'd lose all this. The fresh start, the way you look at me now. Nathan's voice was quiet. What if the man I used to be deserved to be left behind? Clara's breath hitched. Then maybe that's what we both did. They stood in silence under the dim porch light, two broken people caught between a love that had burned down and something new trying to rise from the ashes. And just as Nathan reached for her hand, his phone buzzed. A new number, he answered. Julian Hale? A woman's voice asked. Yes? I don't have much time, she said, urgent. But I was there, that night, the fire, the crash. You didn't cheat on Clara, you were trying to protect her. Nathan froze. Who is this? But the line had already gone dead. That was just the beginning of Nathan and Clara's journey, filled with forgotten memories, hidden truths, and love that defies the odds. But their story is far from over. What happens when the past starts to resurface, bringing even darker secrets to light? Will they find their way back to each other, or will their love be shattered beyond repair? Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for part 2, where the truth will finally come crashing down, leaving everything and everyone forever changed.